Yeah, meaning?
General things.
Like what? Take your time. Anyone help her out?
How can parents deal with the children?
Right.
Children?
Yep. What type of things did we say?
Like we should not. We should. Like treatment. If they have not focused too much about. If, for example, if one of their children, one son, not cut his hair, probably like Islamic manners. So we should focus on not about this. It's not more important than the prayer,
For example.
and fasting, and the 5 pillars in Islam.
All right. Very good. Yep. So we have to raise our children ala huquqillah, the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal. That's the most important thing, and we'll talk about that today more so. But last week was specifically about public charges, meaning general things, any time that you're in a position of authority, basically. Whatever it may be, whether it's in your family, when we focus a lot on children, because that's probably the one we're most going to be in charge of. But we also said if you're the older brother or the older sister, if you're the manager of an organisation or you're responsible, you're the owner, more so than just the manager, if you're the owner, if you're responsible in whatever capacity, that it's your duty to make inshaAllah Azza wa Jal as much as possible, that people follow the orders of Allah Azza wa Jal, and they don't disobey the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that was the crux of all the things we said. And basically in that regard, it's that don't pardon those in your charge for things that are disobedience against Allah. You can't do that, because it's like there's a psychology, they have a term called enabling. You're enabling that person to commit a sin against Allah, to disobey Allah. You're assisting that person. So to assist someone to do disobedience is disobedience in and of itself. So that was the crux of last week's lesson. And I mean, I went into specifics, but the Imam, he didn't really go into so much specifics, because it's something that's close to us. It's something that we're around all the time, and it's specific to our personal circumstances. So it's important for us to know that what we're supposed to do. And he said things like that we should teach those in our charge to love the akhirah, to love Allah Azza wa Jal, and not to be committed or focused solely on the dunya. That doesn't mean that they take don't forget your nasib min ad-dunya. Whatever your portion is of the dunya. And Imam Ali he talks about 2 types of rizq. The rizq that comes to you no matter what, and the rizq that you have to go and chase. Famshu fi manakibiha. Walk amongst its manakib. I don't know what we can say. Nakab. It's favors, bounties, pleasures, whatever you want to call it. Right? Walk in amongst those. So you walk. You have to walk. In other words, you've got to go out to seek what it is that you. Sa'i al-akhirah. No, a sa'i is for the akhirah. Sa'i means to go hard for it. Means, a sa'i bain as-safa wal marwa is walk briskly with intent to be. But famshu is go and find out. A sa'i has purpose. Sa'i is safa, marwa, safa, marwa, safa, marwa, safa, marwa, safa, or that's it, just marwa. Just marwa, that's 7, alright? So, there's a sa'i's got a purpose to it, where famshu, it's alright. You just go and, almost like the difference between a cow and a goat. Now we don't know, we're not farmers, but what does a cow do? A cow is a muncher. It just eats and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats. That's the sa'i for the akhirah. Get whatever you can. Atama' bima 'indillah. Whatever's with Allah, be greedy in it. But a goat is a browser, which means it's a bit like when we go shopping. We go and browse. We look here. We look. That's what a goat does. A goat picks what it wants to eat. It can't be fed. It has to go. That's why I said goats climbing trees, and you see the goats on the sides of big mountains, mountain goats and bighorn sheep and all those things, because they're selective. So the selectiveness is the famshu, because that's what it does. It walks around, looks at what it wants to eat. Sometimes it eats out of the rubbish pile. Sometimes when we were studying in Yemen, that's what we said. The goat herders are always things eating plastic. Goats eating plastic. Don't know how it digests it, but that's what it wants to eat. It eats it. and then it climbs sometimes up onto the rocks and eats whatever the moss after the rain. It's a browser. So that walking is for the dunya, and the sa'i, putting your head down, focusing, is for the akhirah. So those in our charge, we have to encourage them to have a connection with Allah Azza wa Jal, and a connection with the akhirah, and to live life for the akhirah without forgetting what their nasib is in the dunya, what their portion is of the dunya.
You mentioned as well the house that doesn't have a salt.
Yes.
Cain, all this discipline, the shaitan runs the house.
It's a prophetic tradition. It's not. It's a prophetic tradition. Yeah. And so we also mentioned the importance of that is that if you're responsible in whatever sense that may be, on the day of judgment, the people under your charge are going to say, her or him, her or him. That person didn't show us the way. That person was responsible over us. That person was supposed to care for our affairs and our needs, and they didn't counsel us correctly. When we talked about ad-dinun nasiha, didn't we talk a lot about that? This is what happened last week. Long week. It was too hot today. Too hot.
What I'm saying.
Okay. الإيمان لرسول الله وللكتاب ولرسول الكتاب وللمسلمين أئمتهم وعامتهم. So the imma, the leaders, the people in authority, so to speak, of the believers, the nasiha is to them. We've got to advise them. And the question was asked about what we should do and all these things, and we talked about the difficulties the time we live in, and subhanAllah, the Imam is going to talk further about that today. So without any further ado, inshallah, we'll get into it. إننا وأنا نتعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والدعاء على الهدى والدلالة على الخير والحث والتمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله ابتغاء مرضات الله وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنام وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praise it's worthy of beneficent bestower of bounties and favours, and we ask our Lord Most High to send copious and limited and eternal blessings and salutations upon our beloved Prophet, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Says, وقال الإمام رحمه الله نفعنا به وبكم رضي الله عنه وعنكم وأما الفضل. So the last thing we mentioned was that al-mu'amala bil-ma'ruf wal-fadl. Al-ma'ruf, we talked about what's customary. And we discussed last week the customary, the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, al-mu'ashara, the dealing, the way that we deal with our women folk in that regard, لَهُنَّ مَثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Okay, so that the ma'ruf is what's customary. And we spoke about, about 10, 15 years ago, not many people had mobile phones. And remember those conversations? Maybe, not even, I don't know. Maybe we keep it more simple then in the future. Because if we're not remembering it, and we're not taking the other stuff, the points are the points. And the other stuff is to illustrate and illuminate and elucidate, inshallah, the points that the Imam is talking about. That's the main thing. That's why we've got copies of the book, so that whatever we did last week, you can read it last week, and then you can read ahead for this week, and then you can revise, inshallah. So that's the main thing, what the Imam talks about. The other things are just to illustrate the point so we can understand what the Imam is saying. So al-ma'ruf, the beautiful, that's such a hikmah, such a wisdom from Allah Azza wa Jal, that whatever's customary. Remember we said if you live in Double Bay, you got to get stuff from, certain retail stores or the exclusive retail stores. If you live in, less affluent area, then you're not required to. And that's the top, especially in the Shafi'i and Imam Shafi'i, they talk about kafa'a, compatibility, not just about compatibility in terms of personality, in terms of education, in terms of upbringing, in terms of I suppose sometimes the honourableness of families. So in the Shafi'iyah, which is only the Shafi'is have that an Arab woman shouldn't marry a non-Arab man, and a woman who's from Ahl al-Bayt shouldn't marry a man who's not from Ahl al-Bayt, because there's no kafar. That's in the Shafi'iyah. That's the strict ruling in the Imam Ibn Hajar. So that's strict. The Malikis don't have it, Imam Ahmad doesn't have it, and the Hanafis don't have it, but the Shafi'is do. So it's a point to raise that it's not just about compatibility with those things, it's about financial compatibility. If a wife is used to living in the lap of luxury, so to speak. And then funny story that my man al-Haddad told us about one of his relatives. One of our relatives, our family still is a very poor family in the area that they're from. And he married up, so to speak, from a very, very wealthy, large family. And his family all put together and they got him a rug. This is going back years. Got him a rug for his house. And then her family bought the pots and the pans and the spoons and the plates and the tables and the chairs and every time she had a fight with him, they had a disagreement, he'd be using the spoon. She goes, my family got that spoon, the cup, my family got that cup, and they'd have an issue. So one day, when she wasn't home, he got everything and he threw it out. He left the carpet. He said, do you want those things or do you want me? And of course she made the choice and she stayed with him, and alhamdulillah, Allah razaqah. So that's the issue that occurs when there isn't kafa'a, when there isn't compatibility. If you're a brother who wants to get married or your sister that want to get married and you're used to living a particular lifestyle, then you've got to consider that if you want to marry a gentleman or a brother, inshallah azza wa jalla, who is a gentleman as well, bi'idhnillah, who doesn't have that same financial capacity. And then sometimes regularly I get sisters calling, Shaykh, my dad doesn't want me to marry this guy. He doesn't, like if the guy is 25 and he has done nothing with his life, that guy basically, sorry to say, I'm very sorry. I don't want to say it to you and I don't want to put it on the guy. Unless he's got some excuse, he's studying, that's all right. He's done something with his life. He's got an apprenticeship, he's done something with his life. But a guy that's, from job to job and what kind of a future? Your father's right, because that's part of the kafa'a, particularly in the Shafi'iyya, particularly in Imam Shafi'i. So it's all good to fall in love and, head over heels and all these things, but there are practical realities. That's why the guardianship is there, to make sure that you don't make a mistake you're going to regret. So the second part of it is al-fadl. Al-fadl is the preference, al-fadl to allow someone to, I suppose, overstep the limits in the context that Imam al-Haddad's talking about, to favour someone. It says, وَأَمَّا الْفَضْلُ فَهُوَ أَنْ لَا تَسْتَقْصِي عَلَيْهِمْ فِي طَلَبِ الْحُقُوقِ الَّتِي أَوْجَبَهَا اللَّهُ لَكَ عَلَيْهِمْ. So it talks about it on page 98, is it not?
87.
87, excuse me. So the last chapter, so we can recall, in the middle of 87, they're the first paragraph. You must treat them with justice and graciousness. Much better word, graciousness. Justice is to give them everything that Allah Azza wa Jal has made rightfully theirs in the way of expenditure. Clothes. So the first thing he mentions, expenditure. It's clothes. What else does he say? Clothes and living with them charitably. It is one of the obligations. This is what he talked about last. We talked about last paragraph. It is one of its obligations is to take the wronged one's rights from the unjust among them. In a hadith it is said that a servant may be recorded as being a tyrant when he has power over his family alone. That is, when he treats them high-handedly. In other words, unjustly. That was the last part we left off. And in this part he says for graciousness, so being favourable in that regard. This is to treat them gently and not to be harsh in asking them for the rights assigned to you by Allah Azza wa Jal. So that's an important thing, particularly in a husband and wife relationship. That when we first studied nikah, which is the laws of marriage in Islam, the Shaykh told us, he said, these are the rights of the husband, these are the rights of the wife, and then he said, look, if a husband deals with his wife only in accordance to his rights, and the wife deals with her husband only in accordance with her rights, they're going to get divorced. So imagine that. I was shocked. That's what never leaves my mind, that statement, when the Shaykh said it. Shaykh Salah, he taught us that. He said that it's not about what's my right and what's your right. It's about fulfilling obligations. And then the ma'ruf, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوف. It's about that urf. It doesn't necessarily just mean custom. And ma'ruf can also have that connotation of fadl or graciousness. وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. So when there's shiqaq, when there's issues between husband and wife, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Don't forget the fadl. The same thing we're talking about, the graciousness. In other words, that time when you helped out, and that time when you were sick and your wife stayed up all night, she didn't sleep, tending to you, or that time when you had problems and your husband was there and he gave money to your parents, or whatever the case might be, whatever the circumstance might be. But don't forget that when you come upon hard times or difficulties in a relationship, whichever one, I mean, we just focus on the husband and wife one now, but in any circumstance with your mum, you're upset with your mum, okay, don't forget she bore you for 9 months and then, breastfed and looked after you and didn't sleep nights and whatever the case might be. And your father sacrificed his time. Allah, my dad used to work 2 jobs. He used to work as a cleaner in the morning at the hospital, come home, sleep for a couple of hours, and then do gardening in the evening. What, for himself? So he can raise a family, alhamdulillah, Allah yarhamu, Allah wajhul khair. Like, we have to remember those things when we come, particularly to times of hardships and difficulty. Or an older brother or older sister, they took us, they brought us, they lent us money, they advised us, they looked after us, whatever it is they did. But we have the ulama say, the mu'amalat, the dealings between human beings, مبني على أشد الشح, أشد الشح. Extreme miserliness. That's how we are. When someone wrongs us, no, that's it, forget him, defriend them, unfriend them, whatever it is, block them, block their phone number. Don't want to know that person for one mistake they made. But don't forget the fadl. Don't forget the graciousness they showed you in whatever circumstances it is. In particularly, in seeking your rights from another person. One of the Imams, actually, what he says is, don't seek your rights from either a close friend to you, al-qarib, meaning a relative, or from an associate. They said because once you seek your right from a relative, that's going to be problematic for you, and you're probably going to have qata' al-raham, you're probably going to stop, you're going to break the kin ties, and then someone who's not a relative, then they don't owe you anything anyway. So don't go out seeking your rights, go out looking for your obligations. It says, وَأَن تَرْفَقَ بِهِمْ وتخالقهم بالأخلاق الكريمة وتباسطهم في بعض الأوقات من غير إثم بقدر ما تزول الوحشة والتنفير وتبقى الهيبة والتوقير. One of its obligations is to take and to treat them with nobility and to laugh with them at times without falling into sin, in a manner that removes estrangement and repugnance, but maintains reverence and respect. So this is the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, when he used to, the most time he told jokes was with who? Right? Women, mutlaqan, Aisha, but women mutlaqan, the old lady and all the different people. Most of the time, the jokes he said, which were not lies by the way, they weren't sarcasm either, they were the truth when he said alayhi salatu wasalam, as we should joke, they were with women. So when the old lady came, and she said, what's the age of the old ladies in Jannah? And he said, no, there's not. And she got upset. He said, no, everyone's 33, alayhi salatu. Or the lady came and she asked about her husband. And the Prophet said, alayhi salatu, the one with white in his eye. She's like, no, his eyes are black. No, the one with white in his eye. Of course, we all got white in our eye, even though our eyes may be whatever colour they might be. So that's how he used to joke and play. The Prophet of Allah with Aisha used to run with her, had a race with her, 2 races, one that she won, one that he won. So the Prophet ﷺ at talatuf al-rifq, that's the talatuf is gentleness, I suppose, not quite, but rifq certainly is gentleness. That's the dealings that we should have, and that's if you're a mother as well. Screaming, why are you screaming at your kids for? Because you're frustrated. You're frustrated. Turn to Allah. You're screaming at your kids, and you see it a lot, yelling, screaming, cursing when a'udhu billah. La'na when a'udhu billah, like cursing is in a la'na. Allah yal'anik when a'udhu billah azza wa jalla. Someone says that's it's a major sin to curse someone. The Prophet said, I wasn't sent as a curser, or in other words, la'an is to damn someone, not cursing, to damn someone. Cursing is to say a bad word, but to say that someone's damned when a'udhu billah azza wa jalla. When a lady damned her camel, the Prophet told her, get off the camel, don't get on that camel anymore. You damned it. That's it. Now it's easy. La'ani, mal'oon. Even when we say the kid, mal'oon, astaghfirullah al-ali al-azim. Astaghfirullah al-ali al-azim. Instead of saying the kid's intelligent, dhaki, fatin, whatever the case might be, mal'oon. A'udhu billah azza wa jal. It's astaghfirullah al-azim. And we think it's like a compliment to say it when a'udhu billah ta'ala. So, it's that when we deal with those people that are in our charge, we have to be noble in the way we deal with them. We have to be gentle in the way that we deal with them. Because force is the last resort. And once we've got to the stage where we have to use force, it's a failure. It's a failure of our character. It's a failure of our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a failure of our disposition, it's a failure of our ability to assess situations and apply wisdom in a circumstance. We've failed. We've failed. Once you've got to put your hands on someone, or threaten someone with putting your hands on them, in other words force, whatever the case might be, that's a failure. And then when we look at it on a global level, unfortunately in my view, the world that we live in is a failure when we rely on mad, mutually assured destruction to keep peace. That breaks the heart in my view. How can we have that's the premise that we live on at the moment. It's not that we're living in peace because there's justice. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be peace because there's justice. People are getting their rights. People are eating. People are drinking. And the reason why there's poverty in the day and age we live in, according to all the statistics I've read and all the reports and that I've read about it, the experts, is not because there isn't enough food. It's because the rich and powerful prevent those who don't have the finances from having the food. And there's food wastage every year and destruction of food, every year, just to make sure that the market value of a commodity is strong. And the government subsidise that when they say, don't worry, the governments do that. It happens in Australia with lamb and wheat and all these different things. It happens in the States with wheat and other commodities. They said, don't worry, dump it in the ocean, burn it, and we'll pay you the price for it so that the market doesn't, That's on a global scale. So that's dhulm. That's oppression. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's tyranny, whatever form it comes in. Whether it's from a tyrant or a despot or from a democracy or from a so-called Islamic country or whatever it might be, or a communist or whatever. That's tyrannical. How can you let people die or suffer when half of the world's population don't even drink clean drinking water? Don't worry about food. They don't even drink clean drinking water. And it's not because there isn't enough, it's because the way the system's set up, they don't allow those people to do that. It suits the global economics. That's dhulm. There has to be economic justice. So in your own households, if we think that force and pressure and all these things are going to work, yeah, it will for a short time, but not in the long term. We want to rear those in our charge, they themselves to fear Allah. They themselves to have a connection with the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, and the prophetic character and the prophetic way. That's what we want. We want to engender that in those that we're charged with it, we're charged with their responsibility, so they can be those people. And unfortunately, we're not doing that because we're just following along with the system. The oppression that goes on continues to go on. In households, like when I do the sulah, when I do mediation between two people, husband and wife, it's like they're enemies. And you guys have been living together for 15, 10, whatever, but they're like enemies. She's got an agenda and she wants to apply it. He's got an agenda and you're supposed to be partners in this whole deal. You're supposed to work together for your both mutual benefit and the mutual benefit of your family. And whoever is involved in psychology and involved in social welfare sees the results of that on the children. And we spoke about it last week. The number one cause of death for 18 to, I think it's 45-year-old men in Australia is suicide. It's just outrageous. It's outrageous for a country like Australia to have a statistic like that. So you've got to deal with them in the most excellent way in terms of character and conduct, which is the prophetic manner. He said, well, I was only really sent to complete that which is noble of character. So that's the nobility that the Imam's talking about. No.
Can you keep out of the microphone?
Like that. Alright? So he says, وَتُبَاسِطْهُمْ, and to laugh with them at times without falling into sin. So in other words, they say that I think it's a hadith from memory, that the best time, it is a hadith from memory, the best time that a husband can spend with his wife, the best time that a husband can spend after the time of Isha is with his wife. يُلَطِفُهَا وَيُلَاعِبُهَا, that he is gentle with her and he has fun and listens to her. You've got to listen to your wife, gentlemen. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. Marriage will fail when Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? And on certain occasions, without falling into sin. Okay? So that's if with your kids, if you're playing around with them, You got to be careful what they're saying and what you're saying and what you're doing and what actions and what characteristics they have, because there can't be an overbearing relationship between the responsible and those who are under that person's responsibility. It can't be like that. It has to be voluntarily. And as they say, the best managers are leaders, and the best leaders are those that make the people whom they're responsible for into leaders, which means responsibility, mas'uliyah, and that isn't one of the major aspects of our faith, that we're all responsible and we're going to be asked about those things that we're responsible over. Okay? بِقَدْرْ مَا تَزُولُ الْوَحْشَةِ, he says, in a manner that removes estrangement and repugnance. So that it's not a relationship where one is I'm the boss and I run the show, there'll be no one will talk to me, no one can ask any questions of me, no one can, that's it, I make the rules and I do whatever I want to do, and no one else can do that when I'm the ta'ala. So it can't be that circumstance, particularly with one's family. There has to be a situation where the estrangement, in other words, they feel comfortable, especially with your children, especially inshallah azza wa jal, when Allah gives you children, that they need to trust you. They need to be able to trust you. And that's not just children, that's young people that come to you and talk to you. That's young people you talk to and give da'wah to, and you encourage and you mentor and these things. They have to be able to tell you anything. And the way you respond will determine the relationship you have between that person and you, and will determine whether you're going to be a cause for their salvation, inshallah, or whether you're going to be a cause for their further estrangement. Because people have problems. Particularly in the society we live in, people fall into, just the other day I was talking to a brother, mashallah, he's gone to Hajj how many times? And he's done, he's given tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars fi sabilillah. And he's multazim, where's sunnah? And then he was telling me, I went somewhere and something happened and I took a medicine and it affected me, and I went out and I went to the casino and I went here and I took drugs and I went there and I went to very bad places, and I was like, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, man. When he told me, I started crying. SubhanAllah, a guy like this, and and SubhanAllah, look, Allah was testing him in that way. But people make mistakes. This is where we live in the end of times as well. People make mistakes, and we can't be hard-hearted towards these people. And we can't be judgmental towards these people. And we can't be overbearing in terms of, look at this bloke, what did he do? This, that, this. It doesn't work that way. That's not how life. We have to be there to support each other. Ansar akhaka zaliman aw madlum. We have to support our brethren, male or female as the case might be, whether they're the oppressor or the oppressed. The oppressor, how do we support them? By taking them away from their oppression. You don't know what these people are getting into. You don't know what circumstance. He said he took some sort of a sleeping tablet that reacted badly with him, and he woke up 4 days later in the casino. I don't know. That's what he says. After, but take his word for it. Benefit of the doubt. Okay, but we can't leave these people. We can't say, oh, he's a loser, he's a failure, he doesn't love Allah. Wa'udhu billah. If we're not there, what is it? La tunsil shaitan ala akhik. Don't be the supporter of shaitan on your brother. In other words, if you find him making a mistake, don't give it to him. Don't tell him off. It's probably, or she's probably already feeling bad enough as it is. Be there to support him or her so that you can take him away from the shaitan, bring them back into the group so they can be close to Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's very, very important when it comes to children. Your children need to be able to tell you anything and everything without you overreacting. I remember one time, I was visiting one of the family members, and then the dad caught the daughter. She was talking to some guy, and he lost his mind. And he walked into the wall. He just lost his mind. And then after he calmed down, I said, Habibi, you can't do that, mate. This is Australia. You should just go with him, and that's it. That's it. What are you going to do? Can't do anything. Once you're over 18, you get AVO on you, and you never can see your daughter ever again. Oh, this Arab style. I'm going to. I said, the best thing you can do is ask her about this guy. Who is he? What does he do? What life experience does he have? Be there to support you. If your daughter can't come, at least to your wife, if not to you, and tell you, oh, there's a boy at uni, at school, whatever, that likes me. What kind of relationship do you have with your daughter? You're her wali amr. You're her guardian. You're responsible for her. If you can't do that, what are you there for? Go and earn the money and cook the barbie on the Sunday. That's about it. Doesn't make any sense. So you've got to have wisdom in the way that you deal with your daughter in that sense, to bring her closer. She should be able to tell you anything without you losing your mind and overreacting, and it shouldn't be the case. And you should be able to manage that. SubhanAllah, today one gentleman called me and he said, oh, my daughter's a guy, there's a guy at uni, he's not Muslim, he wants to become Muslim, and what a father. I was very impressed. And he gave me the guy, he gave my details to the guy who's interested in Islam, because if he becomes a Muslim, I have no problem him marrying my daughter. That's an open-minded father. That's a father that is working in the prophetic tradition. Another time he went and the dad lost it. No, they're from Lebanon, a particular town in Lebanon. If he's not from this town, not from this family, I'm not giving my daughter to this guy. Bahaj, your daughter goes to university. Yeah, well, what do you think she's going to do there, mate? What? Do you think she's going to come back with that flat hat and a little tassel, and that's it? She's there how many hours a day doing what? She's meeting people. And it wasn't, the guy's Muslim, but I think he was Pakistani or something. They're Muslimin, their country's got the crescent moon and the star on their flag. Like, they're Muslims, what's the big deal? And his dad's Muslim, and the guy's dad is, mashallah, full, beard, and he wears sunnah, and the mum's fully covered. Better than his family. The Pakistani family is more Islamic and iltizam, they're more practicing than his own family. No, it's got to be. And then subhanAllah, all of his daughters married non-Lebanese. All of them. I think he had 4 or 5. What do you want? You want to send them to uni and be educated, and what? Just limited it to that? It doesn't work. That's not the reality. But you've got to be able to have that relationship. If your brother tells you he did this, took drugs, drank alcohol, whatever, you've got to be able to support him. Don't go straight away and tell your mum so you can be the golden child again. Don't do things like that. Don't get the person in trouble. Look after and support your brother.
At what point do you distance yourself from the person if they keep repeating the bad acts and everything?
That's a good question about distance. If it's your brother, you really can't. Unfortunately, misfortunately.
Like a friend.
Yeah, friend, if they're doing it on purpose and they don't want to stop, they don't want to quit, they don't care, then that's one thing. But if the person, look, there's a thing called hukm al-mubtali. Al-mubtali is someone who's an addict. There's a better word for that, is there these days than that?
Afflicted.
I don't know. Yeah, that's what mubtali is, but like in the world of psychology, isn't there a better substance abuse or whatever it is? Someone who's hooked or addicted to a substance, even in the Sharia there's a special ruling for them. They have to be rehabilitated first. So that person who's addicted to a particular substance, if they're genuinely trying to quit, as much as you can support them. If they're not, and that means if they keep falling into that habit, but they're seriously trying to quit, and you believe they are, then stick there and support them. But if they don't care, they're just out, doing whatever they're doing and not caring, and that's a different story. And it's up to you. If it's going to affect you, it's better to keep your distance. But if you can stay strong and still support that person and encourage them, look, this is the right way, do this, go to rehab, get counselling, do whatever, and that doesn't affect you, then it's still okay, as long as your intention is to assist them come back to righteousness and come back to their sanity, I suppose, and leave that substance. So the last part he says, but maintains reverence and respect. Okay? So sometimes you see on Facebook the dads, the daughters put the makeup and all these. Does that maintain reverence and respect? Well, maybe in this day and age is different. I know when we were young, if we went to visit somewhere with my dad, al-Haddad, and the old man used to sit there, and we weren't allowed to speak. Doesn't matter, even when we were young. You're not allowed to speak. That's it. If you're with the ladies or with the kids, it's all right. But with the men, you're not allowed to speak. You have to. Now it's different. Now the kids, we went to visit someone the other day. The kids, they run the show pretty much. We're just sitting around and watching the kids doing what they're doing. So that reverence and that respect, it's applicable in the time that it's applicable in. Like in our days, in no way the dad's going to kick the footy around with the kids. There's no way. It just doesn't happen. But today, if you don't kick the footy around with your kids, or whatever, play games, whatever, it's the new latest thing. What are we up to?
PlayStation 4.
4. PlayStation 4. If you can't play FIFA 2017, right, on PlayStation 4, then you're not gonna get a good relationship with your child, with your nephew, with your niece, with whoever, whatever it might be, whatever the sisters take them out shopping or whatever. Sorry, I know it's very stereotypical, but that's where my expertise in that area finishes. If you don't have some kind of a relationship with them, then how are you going to advise them in a time of difficulty? And the world's a different place now. The world's very different. Even judges, in the court system, and the judges don't even wear wigs anymore or the gowns. Only an appeal, like the world's more colloquial, so to speak, more friendly, more chummy. Those barriers are not there anymore. So one's got to be careful in where they draw the line of respect and where they draw the line of reverence. My advice would be, whatever's haram, that should be the line that's drawn. And whatever is ghayr la'iq, inappropriate for you and your position and whatever it might be, then then draw the line. So I've seen some some of the mashaykh, the way they play with their kids. They play with their kids just like kids, with the little kids, because they're little, they don't get it. But the older kids, no, it's more of a than the respect when they get 7 and 8, and they keep that little bit of a barrier between respect, so the child knows that there's an authority figure over them, which leads them to know Allah's the authority figure over them. And then when they reach the older age, 14, then again they bring him in and just make him part of a partner, so to speak, in their life. Because, as we've said before, the prophetic tradition says, if you don't do that, then they will rebel against you. It says, وَعَلَيْكَ بِالْعَفْوِ عَنْ مَسِيئِهِمْ وَالصَّفْحِ عَنْ جَانِيهِمْ وَاجْعَلْهُمْ بَاتِنًا فِي حِلِّ مِمَّا اخْتَلَسُوهُ من مالك فإنك سوف تجد ذلك في كفة حسناتك فلا ينبغي أن يكون حظك منهم الثواب وحظهم منك العقاب وقد سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم كم يغفر للرقيق في كل يوم قال 70 زلة أو زلة. Said, you should forgive the wrongdoers among them and those who offend you. Absolve them inwardly. For what they may have embezzled of your wealth, you will one day find on the side of good deeds, on the balance of the scale. It is not fitting that they acquire punishment because of you, while you are rewarded because of them. The Messenger of Allah, of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may blessings and peace be upon him, was once asked, how often should a slave be forgiven each day? And he replied, for 70 mistakes. وهذه المسامحة إنما هي في حقوقك وأما في حقوق الله فلا وجه لها. He said, this forgiveness touches upon your rights over them, but never those of Allah or of God. So they do things. You tell the child put their toys away. They don't put all their toys away. For example, your younger sister, you tell her, look, you can wear my whatever it is, but make sure you clean it and iron it and put it back in the cupboard or whatever. You come back, it's not clean, it's not ironed. You want to use it next time, you weren't able to use it. So the people in your charge, you have to be able to forgive them. You have to be able to overlook their misgivings and misguidings. But it's not to a point, la tafrit wala ifrat, right? It's not to a point where you get so badly damaged that you can't keep a relationship with that person, and it's not to a point where they keep continually performing things that are like they're negligent in their responsibilities, that they don't learn proper responsibility. They don't take care of the duties that they've got to take care of. So there's got to be that balance between the two. But he's saying generally, if they, for example, take from your wealth, it's all right in that regard. Let it go, because if you don't forgive them over that thing, then they're going to get a punishment with it. They're going to be punished. They're going to be punished by Allah Azza wa Jal for doing that. But you'll be rewarded if you let them go. It says the Messenger of Allah Azza wa Jal was once asked, so slaves back in the day, they were around, how many times should a slave be forgiven? And don't forget, a slave is property. It's property just like your watch or your ring or your pen or your phone or whatever it might be. And then he said for 70 mistakes. So, and when we talk about the Prophet of Allah salam, Zayd was asked, what was it like to be with the Prophet? He lived with him 10 years nearly. He said, what was it like to be with him? He said, he never asked me to do anything. He was his servant. He never asked me to do anything. So much so that when he was lost and the Prophet took him in as like an orphan, which is not allowed anymore, took him in and he took him on as adopted him. Jazakumullah khairan. He adopted him. So when his dad and his uncle came, they said, "Do you want to stay with the Prophet of Allah, or you want to come back with us?" He said, "No, I want to stay with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." That's how he was. That's how awesome he was. He never used to say anything to anyone, alayhi in that way to hurt them or to make them feel like when they'd done the wrong thing. So it's the overlooking of the minor things, but it's not the overlooking to an extent that we don't teach them about those things. So the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't let people get away with it, so to speak. They would make the mistake or whatever, and he wouldn't make a big deal out of it, but he would teach them, look, it's better if you do things this way. How about if I show you a better way? These are the types of things he used to say, alayhi salatu. Oh, the most successful people are the people that do things like this. Oh, the people who aren't successful do things like that. So it wouldn't be a direct, now they use it in management now. If you want to censure someone or critique someone or give them advice, the management skill is, you talk about the good things they've done. Oh mate, you've done this, you've been good at this and you're great at this. I'll just give you some advice, better to fix this up. That way, it doesn't hurt the person's personality, it doesn't hurt their pride, so to speak, and they're more likely to change their mistake, which is what we want. So, this refers only to the rights that accrue to you, the things that you're entitled to. Like we said, it's your clothes, your pen, you lend it to whatever, your brother or sister, whatever the case might be. But, when it comes to the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal, then you can't forgive. Someone does the wrong thing, they don't pray exact on time, whatever, they steal something, whatever the case might be, then you've got to censure that person and teach that person appropriately, because, again, your job, your responsibility as the responsible person is to engender in them the love of Allah Azza wa Jal and the emulation of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وخص النساء من أهل بيتك بمزيد حظ وتفقد فإنهن ناقصات عقل ودين وعلمهن أحكام الحيض وفرائض الغسل والوضوء والصلاة والصيام وحقوق الأزواج وما يجري مجرى ذلك. So the top of 88, devote special protection and solicitude to the women of your household. Teach them the rules pertaining to menstruation, the obligations of ghusl, wudu, praying, fasting, the rights of their husbands, and other similar things. So in the Arabic version it's a little bit different to the English version. He says that خص النساء من أهل بيتك بمزيد حظ وتفقد. So he says that when it comes to the female members of your household, wife, daughters, mothers, extra, because look, this is men are from Mars, women are from Venus. You've heard that before, have you not? Some of you, right? What did the Prophet say? When he was talking to the men, he said, women are naqisat al-din or naqisat al-iman. Okay? So that's not a dham. It's not they're deficient in intellect and deficient in iman. The reason being because of hayd, because the women go through menstrual cycles, so they can't pray, so the iman is less. And the shahada, the bearing of testimony for hudud punishments only, for capital punishments only or corporal punishments only, the testimony of a woman is 2 women for each testimony of a man. That's not a dham. That's not like putting women down. That's not what. But the Prophet ﷺ is talking to certain people. If at the time, 400 years ago, he was talking to the majority of Bedouins, and he said men are from Mars and women were from Venus, who's going to understand that concept?
Yeah, but take it literally.
You know, right? That's not something they can comprehend. That's not something they can understand. So he told them that, look, you have to treat your women differently than you treat your men. You can't treat your woman, and a lot of brothers make that mistake when they get married. They treat their wife as their mate. Oh yeah, they act in a vulgar manner around their wives. You can't do that. Leave that for your buddies. They tell jokes. They put them like the men, the mates. We put each other down. That's Aussie because we don't want anyone to. It's really like we think it's really cool. I don't think it's cool, but we think it's really cool to put people down as Aussies because that's the tall poppy. We don't want anyone better than us. But I think it's pathetic. Sorry to say that. Like you see it on Facebook, someone puts a photo, and all the guy, oh, you look at his head. Oh, you got a bad noggin. That's what they say to each other. That's how they talk to each other. Why? Why are you saying that? You know, and Muslims and non-Muslims. You know, why would you say that to someone you've been friends with for 30 years? If his head's crooked and you've been hanging around with him for 30 years, what does that mean about your head? No matter how straight you think it is. It's inappropriate. I believe it's inappropriate, and I believe it's an immature way to deal with each other. But that's how they deal with their wives. They put down jokes. Oh, I'm just G'ing you up. That's the call. I'm just G'ing you up. You can't G up your wife, buddy. The Prophet said, ﷺ, they're different to us. So noticeably in the English, he doesn't mention that. He doesn't mention the deficiency of Iman. And it's like I said, it's not a put down. It's to know that men are different to women. In Islam, men have a particular role, generally speaking, and women have a particular role, generally speaking. And it doesn't mean that women can't work and can't contribute to society. That's not what it means. That's not what it's about. It means that men are the قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the care of women to men because Allah has given men a particular feature that He hasn't given women, and that goes back to physicality. That's the Islamic point of view on these things. Men who's mostly in the army, men, armed services, police force, it's changing a bit now, but generally speaking, men, it's that protection. Now, alhamdulillah, we've got armed service, but back in the day they didn't. So the husband had to protect the wife and the family from whatever intruders, difficulties, whatever the case might be. The responsibility was on his shoulders. Like it or don't like it, that's how it is in Islam. It's not my words, it's the words of Allah Azza wa Jal and the words of the Prophet of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. And sisters, I say to you that if you're looking for a husband and you can't acquiesce to that, you can't be ready for that, then don't get married. It's alright, do whatever it is that you want to do, but don't put yourself in a situation where you can't play that role of wife, and you can't acquiesce to whatever it is and agree with whatever it is that your husband has decided that's what's going to happen. If you don't like that, that's fine. But don't get married and then later on, or find a guy that says, hey, you're the boss. Hey, that's all right. If he says that he doesn't want to be the captain of the ship, that's fine. If he says, that's good. Well, see how long your marriage will last. Good luck, inshallah. Dealt with heaps of brothers like that. Because that's what people think they want, but in reality, that's not what they want. So when they get older, she looks at him and says, hey man, I want a man to look after me. Anyway, you can do the research and you can find out what the statistics are on that and go your own way. But that's what our deen says. Like it or don't like it, we'll probably be on the front page of the Herald tomorrow, but that's all right. That's what our deen says. That's what's going on now. That's what's going on. Now it's not just terrorism bashing, now it's Muslim bashing. That's the era we're in right now. We've moved into that phase, and we have to have our iman. We have to be certain and convinced of the convictions that we have with regards to our faith. That's what we believe. I'm entitled to my belief. Others don't believe that. They're entitled to their belief. Don't criticize me in a vacuum. Don't come and say, oh, that's wrong. What have you got that's better? Show me what you've got that's better, and then I'll compare it. Then I can make a decision. But if you're just going to come and criticize me and vilify me just because of my beliefs, then that's a problem. And just because my beliefs are Islamic, that's a major problem. Just because if there was something else, then it wouldn't be a problem. But because I'm a Muslim, well, that's what we're in. That's the phase we're in. So we need to be aware of that and be ready to stand by whatever it is that we say. So he says that because of the fact that men are different from women, and he's teaching the men here specifically, you've got to pay more attention to your woman and the women in your household. That means you've got to fuss over your woman. Right? If you're not fussing her, that's what the Prophet's saying. So all that's what it means. So all the roles and all the things we just spoke about, that's what it means. It means you've got to make sure she's happy. That's your role in life. What does he say? جعل بينكم مودة لتسكنوا إليها sakina. Okay? So the first point is sakina. The household has to be tranquil. And that's the man's job. Doesn't mean that the woman says, the wife says, oh, my happiness is in your hands. Make me happy. No, that's not the case. Everyone's happiness is in their own hands. But the husband has to make a conducive environment for his wife to be happy. He's got to do that. If he's got money and she wants a leather couch because whatever, that's the status of where she's from, and he's got money, he should do it. He should buy it for her. If he doesn't have money, then something else is going to happen. But if he's got the money, he's just, like we said, a miser, that's a big issue. So your woman, you need to fuss over your women, whether it's your mum. One of the young guys that learns with us, he's getting a bit older, and now his mum lets him come out with me wherever we go. So I say to him, every time you leave the house, you got to go up to your mum and say, Mum, do you need anything? You have to do that. That's the attention you have to pay to your mum. Mum, do you want me to get anything while I'm out? And then if we're going to go do something, and then we're going to be extra, always getting to call and speak to his mum. Why? Because she worries. That's her job, really, is to worry. Right? What is it? The mother duck and the ducklings? What? She'll fight anyone to keep the ducklings away from, a threat away from her ducklings. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make, if you're a man, it doesn't make sense. What, you're going to fight, this big creature, but that's the motherly instinct, and we have to respect that motherly instinct. So, your mum worries, don't let her worry. Your dad, whatever, whatever, I'll see you next week. Doesn't care, generally speaking. But if your mum, she's a worrier, why make her worry? That's what he's talking about. The solicitude. Protection, that's the first thing that we're in, because Allah's given us that physical thing. And solicitude, he says, is hav, meaning that you pay attention to her. See what she wants. She doesn't necessarily have to say it. Your daughter doesn't have to say that she wants a car or whatever it is. Pay attention. What's going on in her life? Don't be zoned out, thinking about work or school or money or sports or your mates or whatever it might be. Pay attention to the women folk in your household, because it's your responsibility to make sure that inshallah azawajal they have that sakina, that tranquility and that peace in the household, in order they worship Allah. In order they become good mothers and good daughters and good wives in the future, and good whatever it is they want to do in life and that they've got an aptitude for. So he says that, again, listen to your woman. I recommend it every day, that if it's your mum, whoever, your sister, whoever, you pay attention to her. Particularly your wife, because she's the main one. Every day you got to listen to her for half an hour. Minimum. Sit down and talk what happened, where'd you go. Well, sorry mate, can't put any earphones in or anything. You just got to listen. And you can't come up with solutions for her problems. She doesn't want solutions, she just wants to talk to you. She wants to tell you that she went here and someone said that to her and someone did that and someone looked at her funny and why'd she do that and whatever else. And she doesn't want solutions. Men, we like to only talk when we have a problem and we want a solution. Women, they're talkers, they're different to us, and so they have a different need, and we have to fulfill that need for them. Teach them the rules pertaining to. If you can't teach them, then that's your obligation to make sure they know those rules one way or the other. Menstruation, the obligations of ghusl, which we went through only a couple of chapters ago. Wudu, they've got to know that. Where the face is, how to wear the hijab properly, which we've talked about many times. How to pray, fasting, zakat, if she's earning money, you've got to teach her about those things. The rights of their husbands, that's obvious, because a good wife or a righteous wife is raised in a household with her father. The way the father treats the daughters, that's going to affect the way the daughters become wives later on. So it's important for them to know. And whatever things that, isn't that what other similar things, he says, وَمَا يَجْرِي مَجْرَ ذَلِكَ. He says things that are on that same line. So if she's working, she's out working, you've got to tell her what haram, where she may fall into haram, what she needs to, like being in a one-on-one environment with a male who's unrelated to her, and the rooms are locked and things like that. Okay, you've got to tell her that, look, it's haram, you can't be in that situation. Wearing makeup, wearing perfume, all the different things, okay, that go along with whatever it is she might do. Whatever it is, she should teach her, okay, how does she deal with this, how does she deal with that? If she's, the principal, if she's the CEO, if she's whatever it is that she may be, it's your responsibility for her to know those rights. There's only one more paragraph, but we're getting going on a bit further than we normally do, so I think that's enough for now. Any questions about any of those things? No.
I'm still a bit confused about the previous paragraph about you should forgive the wrongdoers among them. That one.
Yep.
I don't it's not clicking with me. I don't get it.
So what he's saying is that don't harbour any grudge against them, so to speak. They do the wrong thing, you might have to discipline them. Yeah? You might have to do whatever you need to do. But inwardly, you've got to forgive them. Okay? So you don't be harsh in your dealings with them. That goes back to the chapter that's before it, about graciousness and about justice. So Once you harbour a grudge against somebody, or once you don't forgive someone in your heart, then the way you deal with them changes. And that happens. That happens a lot. For example, what the prophetic tradition that says, La wasiyata liwarith, that you can't bequest or give property of yours to someone who's already your heir. So in other words, a man's dies and he's got a son and a daughter, right? You can't say, oh, I want to give my daughter extra, whatever it is, unless they both agree. Because why? That makes enmity between them, treating them unfairly. And how many times I've seen it when that happens, they're about to sign off on the inheritance, and the daughter pipes up and says, well, my father wasn't fair towards me, he didn't give me the time, and that's why I'm not signing, and all these types of things. So that may have been because she did something and the father held something in his heart against it. So it's about kind of being objective. That they did something wrong, but it's not directed at you, it's because they've got their own issue, and you need to guide them through that issue and discipline them accordingly, or rear them accordingly, or advise them accordingly, but don't hold it in your heart. Internally, forgive them, but externally, you might have to chastise them. But in your heart, between you and Allah, no, forgive them. Because what he says there, not just about the way you deal with them, but what he says there, because they get punished by Allah. If they've taken your right and you haven't forgiven someone in your heart, that person gets punished. So you get a benefit, what he's saying is, you're going to get a benefit out of the fact that they've done something wrong. But you're the person responsible over them, so you've got to teach them what's right and be even-handed enough not to hold a grudge or to bear some ill will in your heart towards that individual. Does that explain it?
Yeah, and you know how he says, like going off that, while you are rewarded because of them, so if you haven't forgiven them, how can you be rewarded?
That's the thing. Well, I mean, say for example, the kid goes into your wallet, takes $100, right? And then goes and spends it on, what do kids spend on these days? I don't know.
Lollies.
Come on, kids don't buy lollies anymore, do they? Lollies, all right? Goes and buys lollies with it, okay? And then, so if you don't forgive that person, the benefit you're getting is, on the day of judgment, that $100 or the reward that's associated with the $100, you're going to get that back. That's the reward he's talking about. Okay? So it's not outside of that, it's that reward. So they've done something wrong, but they're in your charge, you get the double benefit. He says, so don't benefit from their wrongdoing, is basically what he's saying. Does that make sense?
There's the ayah, وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. This, it's related to this ayah, do you think?
Not really. I mean, I suppose it is that if someone does something, if someone wrongs you in any way, then you get your right on the day of judgment. That's it. You get haqq from them, whatever it may be.
Judgment Day.
On Judgment Day, right? So what he's saying is, the Imam's saying is, don't use them as a cause to get more hasanet in that way.
And they're getting punished.
And they're getting punished at the same time. Because you're responsible for them. You've got to teach them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So teach them. Don't benefit in that way from them. Teach them the right thing and benefit from the positive things they do rather than benefiting from the negative or the haram or whatever it might be things they do. Alright? Someone blurts out in your face, you're a so-and-so. Someone who's your charge. Right? Okay. They might have been angry, upset, tired, sick, had a bad day, whatever the case might be. So, in your heart, it's a hard one. It's easy to forgive someone for stealing your money, I think, these days. We're very sensitive these days, us people, us human beings in 2016. So if someone says something to us, it hurts us so much, okay, you've got to be able to forgive that. You've got to be able to overcome that hurt that you felt in order to teach them the right thing. Does that make sense? Or you heard they backbited you, or whatever the case might be. You've got to forgive internally, but teach them that backbiting is haram, this and that. This is what it does. It might create fitna, it might create problems and trials. Yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does people in charge include like people you babysit or you take care of?
Anyone. Yeah, anyone who you're responsible. Anyone who you're responsible for, whoever it might be. So you've got a responsibility to that person. You can't oppress them, take their rights. You've got to, even if they're Muslim or not Muslim, doesn't make a difference. You've got to read them in the best possible way, advise them in the best possible way that's beneficial to them and not in your own interest. So sometimes there's a conflict of interest when you do whatever it is you do. Like for me as a solicitor, I have to advise people, but then I charge them for that advice. Sometimes it's a conflict of interest, but the duty is to act in the best interest of the client. So I have to do that. And some people they don't, but as Muslims, we have to do that. We're duty bound whatever whatever we've sworn to uphold, we have to uphold that. Whatever we've made an oath to uphold, we have to uphold that thing, irrespective of what it might be. Any questions about the rest of that? So Ashura, I think it's Sunday, isn't it? No one knows. I don't know either. The first of Muharram was Friday last week.
Well, some said it was Saturday.
Some say whatever day it is, said it's going to be Sunday, or with the 10th of Muharram, with Saturday or Sunday, Sunday or Monday, inshallah azza wa jal. So it's a major day in the Islamic year, and it's a major day not just for Muslims but for all the prophets. The 10th of Muharram originally, it was when the Prophet, actually even Quraysh used to fast it. Quraysh in Mecca, they used to fast it, and then they were asked, why did you do that? They said, because our forefathers did a major sin, a major thing. It wasn't mentioned what it was. And then we asked Allah Azza wa Jal, forgive us. And then it was on the 10th of Muharram that Allah forgave them. And it's not just all those, it's not just them. When the Prophet went to Medina, he saw the Yahud, the Jews, they were fasting on the 10th of Muharram, and he asked them why. They said that's the day that Allah Azza wa Jal he saved Musa alayhi salam, Afwan, and his people, and that's the day he destroyed Pharaoh and his people. So it's a major day, not only for that, that's the day Allah Azza wa Jal saved Nuh from the floods. That's the day that Allahumma salli wa sallam al-Noon, Yunus alayhi salam, his people were saved. Basically all the Aqwam, all the people that were saved on that day. Hud, the Salih, and all the different people. That was the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to emancipate them from the difficulties they were in and get rid of the, and for us, we're facing difficulties. It's not something new. And that's a day of emancipation, of freedom from the difficulties that we're involved in our lives. So it's a chance for us by fasting. Originally Sayyidina Musa, he celebrated the day of Muharram the next year because that's the way we celebrate it as Muslims. We worship Allah, we do greater worship to Allah, whether it's prayer or giving money or sacrificing an animal or fasting. So that's the reason it was done. And it's a very virtuous day to fast, and the Prophet ﷺ encouraged everyone to fast it. It's the forgiveness of a year of sins. So it's something that as much as possible that we should endeavour to find out whenever it is, whether you follow the moon sighting or calculation or whatever it is. And if you can give some money as well on that day, more beneficial for you, inshallah. No.
If a sister can't fast that day, is there anything she can do other than give
money? If it's not like they give money, make dhikr, make tawbah. It's also an important day for tawbah, because the repentance to Allah Azza wa Jal, because the cause of most people's most aqwam, their salvation was tawbah. Once a person returns to Allah, or a group of people return to Allah, that's where their salvation lies. So it's very, very important for us also to make tawbah on that day. I mean, there's a lot about it as well with regards to leadership, because that's the day that al-Hussein at Karbala, where he was murdered basically, or assassinated, whatever you want to call it. And that was a day when it was Yazid was an issue between Sayyidina Ali and Yazid's father Muawiyah, who's going to be the leader, and ended up that Sayyidina al-Hussein was there in Karbala, which is now in Iran, and he Sayyidina al-Hussein, he sent envoys to Yazid, and he said, look, I'll do this and I'll do that, and let's forget about it, and look, let me go, let my family go, let this, and he refused. He flatly refused all of these things, and that's so. Sometimes we think, why did he go with 72 people and fight the whole army? Well, he had no choice. And so what Sayyidina Hussein did, all the people that weren't from his family, he let them all. He said, look, we're going to get the street. Knew they were going to die. They knew. So he let them all go, all the servants and the soldiers and everyone else. They all left, and then when they stabbed him, and they murdered him, he was making dua for them. That's how it should be for us. He was making dua for his oppressors and his murderers, saying, Ya Allah, forgive them for what they've done to me and the family of the Prophet of Allah. So it's one of those things that it's a day for us, particularly in the difficulties that we're only starting to face it. It's only the beginning. But inshallah Azza wa Jal, if we connect to Allah Azza wa Jal and keep our iman strong, keep to those deeds, any time that we have a difficulty, a trial or a tribulation, that if we're not turning back to prayer, and we're not turning back to fasting, we're not turning back to the book of Allah, we're not increasing our dhikr, and we're looking at just the worldly asbab, then we're going to fail. Anytime we first return to Allah, first thing is tawbah. Because why does Allah send us these difficulties? Because we're not doing the right thing. We're not worshipping Allah properly. Sayyidina Musa, right, and his people, when they came out, Allah parted the seas for them. 12 separate passages. Each tribe went in their own tribe, their own passage for themselves. And they looked and they saw the other tribes through the other side. They went through, they saw Fir'aun and his whole army get destroyed. They walked up a little bit further. They went. What happened to them? They saw a qawm. They were worshipping something. They said, Isna lana aliha, Isna lana ilahan kama lahum aliha. Make for us something to worship. They said to Sayyidina, like they just saw and they experienced that. And they said, Antum qawmun tajhalun. You are a people that purposefully make yourselves ignorant. You're not ignorant, but you make yourselves ignorant. That's just after the miracle happened. Just after the miraculous things occurred. So, for us, the returning, if we don't return to Allah, return to the remembrance of Allah, return to the asbab al-nabawiyya, the prophetic causes, the things that change with Allah Azza wa Jal, then Allah will keep sending these trials and tribulations. But if we repent to Allah, turn back to Allah, change our ways, change our bad ways, turn them into good ways, inshallah Azza wa Jal, change our evil characteristics into prophetic characteristics, then Allah, the change will come. Allah Azza wa Jal will send the change for us, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we've got to be aware of these things, and we've got to understand that these are the ways that Allah Azza wa Jal, inshallah ta'ala, these are the ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save us bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal. And we've got to be aware of these things. We've got to be conscious of these things. And rather than crying this and crying that, we've got a way. We've got a prophetic way. And we've got to stick to that as much as we can in order to be saved. So I received, and again another subject, I received an email a while ago which I've been meaning to answer, and we didn't acknowledge the Aboriginal people, the indigenous people of the land in which we have this class, and we pay our respects to the elders past and present. Please, if I forget, remind me. It's a very important thing for us to acknowledge the indigenous people, especially in Australia. So the sister sent me a question about food, about dietary requirements, and particularly about meat, and about halal meat. And what she talks about is the way that animals are reared on farms, right? The way that animals are slaughtered, and the different procedures and practices that are done, and whether if they're not being treated in the right way, whether that means their meat is halal or not halal. Alright? Is that for us or is that next door?
Is that a fire alarm?
It sounds like it, but is it here or next door? I think it's next door as well. So, alhamdulillah. Alright? If we start to smell smoke, you know what to do. Alright? So, the question is that if an animal isn't treated right, so like I've seen plenty of videos myself. Okay, firstly, we've got to talk about one thing, which is mass production. Okay, we live in a world of mass production. Mass production is not just to feed the people, it's about making money. Alright, and I go back to what we said previously in the class about economic injustice. Once there's an economic injustice, then things aren't going to be right. And the way in which we treat animals isn't going to be right. So does that mean that if an animal is treated badly, is kept in a cage, is fed like they did to the cows back in the day, they fed him other cows, and what they've done to the chickens, they fed them chicken, and it's not good, it makes them ill. I don't know if you guys remember mad cow disease. There was a disease that hit Europe and Britain in particular. Okay? Is it haram to do that? Yes. If those animals are treated badly, but they're slaughtered the right way, is it halal for me to eat them? Yes. It is halal for me to eat that animal, irrespective of how it's treated. Who cops the sin for treating that animal badly? Is the keeper, the slaughterer, the abattoir, the owner, person responsible. If I eat that meat, is it halal for me to eat it if it's been slaughtered by a person who believes in Allah, they swear the name of Allah, they say the name of Allah and they slaughter it? Yes. It doesn't make that meat halal for me, haram for me, excuse me. So for example, one of the things that we have to do, we have to have rifq and gentleness and mercy for the animals, meaning the animal that's being slaughtered, say sheep for example, shouldn't even see the knife that's being used. Not if we're slaughtering numerous amounts of animal, animals, nor sheep for example, nor should the sheep that's waiting to be slaughtered see the sheep being slaughtered, another sheep being slaughtered, nor the blood of that sheep being slaughtered, nor should they be handled roughly. And it happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The beasts of burden, oxen and cattle. If anyone has to go, you're free to go. Don't be held. It's not rude to leave, because I know you have people picking you up and all these things. Oxen and mules and camels and whatever the beasts of burden they're called. So they used to come to the Prophet of Allah and complain. One time a camel complained and said, Ya Rasulullah, look, I'm being worked to death. They don't feed me enough. And he told the people, and they let the animal go fi sabilillah, okay? Gave him as a gift to the Prophet as well. Different things. So that's part of our deen. Is what's going on wrong? Yes. Does that mean the food that we're eating is haram? No, it doesn't mean that. What's the best way to do it? He also has questions about dairy industry. Of course, the way they treat the animals, the way they. Of course, it's torturous, but does it mean it's haram? No. The lactating and they keep them away from their calves and all these types of things. All of it is in an Islamic farming situation. That would not be the case. At one time, the whole army was going out with the Prophet of Allah, and the pigeon came and it was acting weird. And the Prophet of Allah said to someone, "Have someone upset this pigeon?" They said, "Yes, we saw the pigeonlets or whatever they're called, the baby pigeons, and we took them away." And the Prophet said, "Return them back because you've upset." And another time, a deer. Someone tied up a deer and it told the Prophet ﷺ, "Don't keep me here because I've got some fawns that I've got to feed." And the Prophet told the person who caught it, and they let it. I think he might have let it go, ﷺ, from memory. And then the deer went back. So that's part of our faith. It definitely is. All right. So ethics is one aspect of it. There are ethical considerations that we have to have as Muslims in the way we look after animals, the way we treat animals, the way we slaughter animals, all those things that have to do with it. If someone breaches the ethics, of course they're going to be sinful. That person is going to cop from Allah Azza wa Jalla if they don't repent and change their ways. For me to eat that meat, it's not haram. From the door of wara', okay, from the door of scrupulousness, preferable probably not to eat something like that, because it affects us. We are what we eat, as the saying goes. So the question goes on further about nutrients and how we take our nutrients, consuming too much meat. Of course we shouldn't consume too much meat. There's even traditions that say that we shouldn't eat meat 40 days in a row. But what did the Prophet say about meat? He said it's Sayyidul Ta'am. It's the best, the Lord, the King of all the foods. So we should eat it. Milk. The Prophet said what he used to drink. What was his dua when he drank milk? Alayhi salatu wassalam. Okay, if everything else, and honey, everything else you drink it, Ya Allah, put barakah in blessing in that which you have given us, and give us better than that. Except milk and honey. When he drank milk and honey, he would say, Ya Allah, give us more of the same. So they're special things. Yep, some people have lactose intolerant. If you're Arab, you're not lactose intolerant, because we grew up from generation on milk of cows and particularly goats and camels, because we're desert people in our origin. We grew up on that. That was our base diets. So she's talking about veganism. Yeah, okay, it's great. Become a vegan. But then don't forget the GMOs, don't forget the pesticides, don't forget, there's plenty of research that's coming out in the last year or so that says that, look, veganism, there was a while when people were saying veganism is going to save the world because there's so many gases and things produced from animal farming, the waste of water, all those things. Now they're saying, well, actually that's not the full picture. Okay, so if you yourself want to become a vegan, that's fine. Meaning a vegan, a person who's a vegetarian, doesn't eat anything that come from animals. That includes milk and eggs and whatever else it may be. Okay, that's fine if you want to do that. That's fine for you personally. And if you want to encourage other people to do that, that's fine too. But don't go out and abuse or give people a hard time who eat chicken, who eat meat, who eat whatever it is. Leave them to their own devices. Okay? If you want to tell them nasty stories about what happens in slaughterhouses, make sure it's not around the meal time. Before meal, during the meal in particular, or after the meal after they've eaten. Pick a time that the person is not hungry or not full, and talk to them about your feelings, what your thoughts are about that particular thing. My suggestion, like I've said before, is if you really are serious about it, you need to get a farm and have your own chickens, treat them humanely, have your own animals, treat them humanely. If you do decide that you want to use them for meat, you've got to follow whatever regulations are there about slaughtering animals within an urban area or whatever the case might be. Really, if you want to be true, you should grow your own vegetables and you grow your own fruits and whatever else as well. That's the best case scenario. And they've got that, Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina. There's a special farming technique that they have for that. I forget now, it's slipped my mind. Shaykh Haisam. Permaculture. So, permaculture, where they can, in a little amount of area, grow all the necessities that you have. So instead of having lawn at home, have those types of things. If you're really serious about it, and Imam Ibn Majah, that's what he used to do. He used to fast one day, break his fast the next day, but every day he would have a chicken, which he reared himself, which he fed himself, which he looked after himself. He wouldn't let anyone else. He wouldn't eat from anyone else's chickens. He would only eat from his own chickens because he understood the process that, you know, when he feeds them, he knows what he's saying. He's Bismillah. He's merciful to them, etc., etc. And the barakah that comes from that. Also, like I said, there's a whole list of documentaries that are there. Like I said, there's some for the vegans that support veganism. There's some that don't support veganism. My personal view is, as I said to you previously, organic is the way to go if you can't grow your own vegetables. It's not the best, but it's better than the traditional way, or whatever you want to call it, the Monsanto way, or whatever you want to call it. All, you know, they just insecticides and pesticides and whatever else asides. They poison everything. And even the farmers that work there, they've got to wear protective clothing because the stuff's just so toxic and there's genetically modified. You want to stay away from those types of things. And even better than even better than organic is organic that's I forget what it's called now. Bio. I forget what it is. VG.
The biodegradable?
No. I forget what it is now. There's a level that's above organic. It'll come to me, inshallah, azza wa jal. For example, the test they've done is even with organic milk, once that cow, subhanAllah, once they cut the horns, because they cut the horns of the cow so they don't, you know, headbutt each other or hurt each other, even that affects the quality of the milk. I forget what it is, not coming. Biodynamic, that's what it is. So biodynamic, they feed the chicken special things. That's even a level above organic. If you can buy your biodynamic milks and your cheeses and your whatever else it might be, then that's the better way to go. And again, as you were mentioning, fair trade. That we have to have economic justice. I believe that's the major difference between the two forms of making food for people to eat. One form is to produce the cheapest, the largest amount. That's not about feeding people, that's about making money. And the other form is to make the best quality product, and whatever it costs, that's what we're going to charge. And that's what organic is. The price is going up daily almost for organic produce because the demand is a lot greater, harder to produce as well. But people are willing to pay it because they understand the value of it. And fair trade means that the farmers in whichever country they are farming that produce get a fair amount instead of being taken advantage of and rorted by the middleman or whoever it might be, or the end seller. They get a fair percentage of that. And it's about sustainability, really. So Muslims should be the world leaders in these things. And alhamdulillah, there's a lot of permaculture farmers going on around the world, and that really could be, and it's alhamdulillah in the Muslim world, it's picking up a lot, and that's something that's very, very positive, because we need to be able to, self-sufficiency in any country, in any area, for Muslims, it's a fard kifaya. It's a communal obligation that we all have to work towards. But it is a serious issue. It is a big issue, because what we put in our stomachs really determines how we're going to act, and that's one of the reasons why we don't dig on swine. We don't eat pork and ham and those kind of products. So, look, it's a big issue, but that's hopefully a little bit of a kind of insight into what it is. And like I said, if you have a particular view about that, that's fantastic. If you want to encourage others, make sure it's an opportune time. Don't talk about it when people are eating and all these types of things. And do your research from both angles of it, because there's constantly new research coming out about veganism. And then, look, don't forget, we live in a world that's not like the world of our forefathers. Like I talk about myself. I probably see an hour or two of sun a week, except on the weekends, because I'm always in my office working. It's a different world. Okay, our exercise, because we live a sedentary lifestyle, we're not exercising the same as we used to be. The food that we're eating doesn't have the nutrients that the food used to have in it. So that might mean that if you do want to take that lifestyle, that you see someone who's a nutritionist or an expert to give you supplements, nutrition supplements, to make sure that you don't harm yourself physically, because it's not a good thing to do. And it could end up being that a person, maybe their reproductive system is affected, or their respiratory system is affected, or their endocrine, their hormones are affected, things like that. You don't want to take things into your own hands and damage your own body, because it'll be harder for you to be a righteous human being. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Any questions about any of those things? Ran a bit long today, I apologise for that. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala khayril anbiya, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.